I'm Mark Golub, and in the news is a serious attempt in the Jewish world to convince Western European nations to place Hezbollah on the European Union's list of terrorist organizations. This effort comes in the immediate aftermath of a Bulgarian report that Hezbollah was responsible for the bombing last summer that took the lives of 5 Israeli tourists and a Bulgarian bus driver. And you may remember that brutal incident on July 18th of last year when a suicide bomber boarded a bus of Israeli tourists in the seaside resort of Burgas and set off an explosion that killed 6 and injured 32. And the Bulgarians have now determined that Hezbollah terrorists were behind that bombing. By the way, the United States has designated Hezbollah a terrorist organization, did so in 1999, as has Canada, Great Britain, the Netherlands, and Australia. Well, right now, there's a delegation from the Conference of Presidents of major American Jewish organizations in the midst of its annual leadership mission, and they're currently in Paris, meeting with French officials in the hopes that France will also agree to add Hezbollah to the terrorist list. And to give us a sense of their progress, we're pleased to have on our phones from Paris right now the Vice President of the B'nai B'rith International Executive, Daniel Mariaschin. And Dan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
Dan, first of all, give us a sense of your progress. What has happened? Sort of take us through your meetings up to this point.
Well, we are here in Paris with the Conference of Presidents. It's an annual mission. Each year, the mission goes to Israel, but also goes to a different country every year. We've gone to several in Europe over the past several years, and France is the one this year. We just really began our program today, so we've only had a few meetings. And, of course, during the course of our stay with government officials, we will be raising at every stop the issue of the Bulgarian report on the Burgas terrorist attack in the hope that not only France, but that most of the other European countries, and you said in your lead-in that really only the Netherlands here in Europe has put Hezbollah on its terrorism list. So the hope here, and hopefully an expectation as well, that after the conclusive evidence provided by this report, all of the European countries will now begin to look at this issue, long overdue, of putting Hezbollah on the terrorism list in their countries and in the European Union.
Dan, when you talk to foreign leaders, is there an argument against putting Hezbollah on the terrorist list?
Well, the countries have different reasons. Several of the countries say that, Hezbollah has a military wing, but it also has a political wing, that it's part of the Lebanese government. It's not quite clear. Let me tell you, when it comes to terrorist organizations, all money is fungible. And to think that the military and political wings, if you call them that, of a terrorist organization don't talk to each other, don't share bank accounts, don't share information, then you're not really living in a real world. And so that's one issue. The other thing is relating to the stability of Lebanon. And in fact, what Hezbollah has done is not preserve the stability of Lebanon, but if anything, it has intimidated that country and has really robbed it of its sovereignty. You basically have a terrorist organization that calls the shots to a large extent in that country. So by placing Hezbollah on the terrorism lists, in that sense, one could say that you're helping to free Lebanon from the yoke of this terrorist organization, which stockpiles tens of thousands of rockets, which has sent thousands of its terrorists to fight in Syria alongside Bashar Assad's troops, which has engaged in terrorist activity, whether it was the Marine Corps compound in Beirut in the early 1980s, the AMIA bombing in Buenos Aires, not to mention dozens and dozens of other a terrorist act that it is carried out. There's no question here. There is no question. It's long overdue. Time to get that organization on those lists.
You know, here in America, when it is discussed within the Jewish community, there's always the question as to whether the resistance, the reluctance to designate Hezbollah a terrorist group is a form of anti-Israel action. Is it in some way a way of not being sympathetic to the Israeli cause and the Israeli position? To what extent do you believe that as you talk to European leaders, there is some kind of anti-Israel policy which is preventing nations from adding Hezbollah to the terrorist list?
Well, I'm not sure about that. And I think there's a recognition that Hezbollah, frankly, which has been kind of cast as Israel's problem, you're right about that part of it, is really much more of a problem than just Israel's. You know, it's like with Iran.
Yes.
Iran is not just Israel's problem, it's a problem for the world. Iran is the biggest destabilizer of world peace today. No, I think it's this issue of these kind of false constructs of saying that Lebanon will be undermined, that there's a political wing. You know, many countries have Hamas on lists. Why wouldn't Hezbollah be on a list?
That's why
I think that we need to have more fortitude here and more courage. What the Bulgarians did was a very courageous thing.
Yes.
They basically were able to turn back on their own European partners and say, look, we have gone into this investigation and we understand now this was a terrorist act carried out on European soil. And the challenge now is for the other European countries to do and stand up just as Bulgaria has.
I agree with you. And again, the point you make that European countries have designated Hamas as a terrorist organization suggests to me that in some way there is an effort to protect Hezbollah, and maybe it's simply for what you said, Dan, their connection to the government of Lebanon. But then again, Hamas is the government in Gaza, and it would seem to me that if they can put Hamas on the terrorist list, and now they see the evidence that comes out of the Burgas terrorist attack, there should be no problem for European nations, such as France, designated Hezbollah a terrorist organization. And I guess one of the things I was interested in hearing from you is whether, in your talks with French officials, you have any sign of encouragement that, in fact, France and other Western countries will move in that direction.
Well, I think it's a little early, even with our visit here, which the timing happens to be, frankly, very fortuitous, because it's come on the same week as the release of the Burgas report. So the timing may be a bit early, but I think that now the onus is on the capitals here in Europe. I mean, the Bulgarians have made it very clear exactly who is involved, who is behind it, passports, the funding. They did connect Lebanon to it. This is where Hezbollah operates. I don't see now how those arguments of military wing, political wing, and Lebanon stability, I don't see how they can turn away from it. Now, it's possible because, you know, we're disappointed frequently by the Europeans on many things, votes in the UN and other things. But I don't see how they can turn away from it now, and we'll continue to press. And by the way, not just here in France, but in all the other countries as well in the European Union, except, of course, for the Netherlands, which has done the right thing.
Let's talk for a moment about the European Union. The European Union Foreign Policy Chief, Catherine Ashton, has gone on record saying that the EU is against terror and that they now will carefully assess the report from Bulgaria when they try to make decisions regarding Hezbollah. What do you read out of that statement? And in general, how do you feel about the European Union's overall attitudes towards terrorist groups in general and Hezbollah in particular?
Well, I did read Ashton's statement. Look, right now, as you know, French troops were dispatched to Mali in northern Africa, northwest Africa, to fight the terrorist organizations that had taken over the northern part of that country. Of course, NATO has been in Afghanistan now for 12 years, fighting the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. Countries in Europe from Spain to France to so many other countries, have experienced terrorist attacks, and I'm sure that in terms of their own domestic law enforcement and intelligence investigations, they take these matters seriously. The issue here is to take the broad view, and the broad view is that Hezbollah is one of the main terrorist organizations in the world today, global terror organization, armed to the teeth, taken over a country. By the way, you could say the same about Mali.
Yes.
You could say that these terrorist organizations and these extremist organizations have taken over that country. So if they are attempting to take over Mali, and Hezbollah's already taken over Lebanon, I mean, the logic would be that you would go after Hezbollah. So, as I say, the onus now is on these countries, and the job that we have before us, and not just us in the Jewish community, but our friends. I saw an op-ed, I think it was today, that was co-written by Jose Maria Aznar, the former Prime Minister of Spain, who is a good friend of Israel and a real realist when it comes to these issues. We need, more friends on board. We need friendly members of government, members of parliament, influentials who finally see, and we've seen some good editorials in the United States, and perhaps maybe the European papers will be taking a look at our newspapers on the Burgess report. So there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of convincing and persuading to do, and we in our community stand ready to do that together with our friends to finally move the EU to a point where they designate this organization for what it is, which is a terrorist organization.
Okay, and forgive me for pressing you one more time on this. At the moment, are you optimistic based on the discussions you've had?
Well, that's a very it's a tough word to qualify, because I'm optimistic about our opportunity to make the case.
Yeah.
We are we're absolutely certain about that. The question here is, Europe's track record on these things is not good, and we both agree on that. It's not good on this and a number of other issues. In taking the lead and really doing what the Bulgarians did, which was to stand up. So based on the track record, one has to be careful and cautious about making those kinds of predictions. But I think now with this report out, it becomes much more difficult for the European countries and for the EU as a collective to walk away from this very important challenge and very important issue and very important threat.
Okay, you say well, Dan, and obviously we wish you luck on that part of your mission. Talk to me also in general about what you've experienced as you're on this mission with the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations. I understand, by the way, some of the delegation that you're with visited other parts of France. For example, some went to Toulouse to visit the Or Ozar HaTorah school, where last year's deadly shooting attack occurred. In general, what are you finding on this tour in general?
Well, part of the group did go to Toulouse yesterday. We've heard reports from that trip. We did not go, but we heard reports. It was an emotional visit by the group that went down there, meeting with parents and going to the school, meeting with deputy mayors, going to the synagogue. France has 600,000 Jews, and that attack affected each and every one of them in one way or another, as we were all affected. All of us were affected. And I think it did affect the broad population here in France as well. This is not the first time that terrorist acts have occurred here, and in fact, we remember the attack at the synagogue in Rue Copernic and the Joe Goldenberg's restaurant. I mean, there's a whole list over the last 30, 35 years. So that was an emotional visit. So that means, the issue of anti-Semitism, of terror carried out by extremist groups, of course, that's on the agenda. The The Iranian issue is on our agenda. We're getting to the point, I think 2013 is going to be really a critical year, the critical year in terms of the Iranian enrichment program. And France's position on Iran has been quite strong and quite consistent. So I think our discussion about that issue will resonate well here. We talk also about the BDS boycott, divestment sanctions issue here, not only here, of course, but with other Europeans as well. We'll be talking about it when we get to Israel, another issue on our minds. So there's no real shortage of issues. And then there are the broader issues, the global war on terror, which France, by sending its troops to Mali, we believe is really doing the right thing. And, of course, the economic situation in Europe that affects not only Europeans but also affects us as well. So there's no shortage of important issues to discuss.
Right now, you're calling us from Paris. We're talking to you in Paris. Have you yet visited any other European cities?
On this trip, no. But I would like to add this, Mark, because we talked about the Borges report. In about a month's time, we will observe, and I'll be going over to Sofia, Bulgaria. We'll be observing the 70th anniversary of they call it the salvation, the rescue of the Bulgarian Jews, 48,000 Jews inside Bulgaria, who, because of the courageous acts of a number of Bulgarian citizens, were saved from deportation to the Nazi death camps. And that's going to be an important commemoration. Later this year will be the 70th anniversary of the uprising in the Vilna ghetto, and I know there'll be commemorations surrounding that. A lot of things going on, 70th year, very important in a lot of different places here in Europe. And B'nai B'rith and, of course, other Jewish organizations will be taking part and participating in those activities as well.
I'm glad you reminded us about all of that. I want to come back to Paris then. As you walk the streets, do you have any sense that a Jew is somehow now vulnerable? And we've heard all kinds of reports then about the growing anti-Semitism throughout Western Europe, including in France. I don't know the extent to which it exists in Paris, but I wonder if in your conversations simply with the Jews of France, the Jews of Paris, whether you hear people saying they're concerned about their well-being and their safety, or in fact are Jews of Paris living a lovely life and are very happy there.
No, I think, look, there's everywhere you go, and it's not only in terms of the Jewish community. I think there's kind of an unease in the air about the difficulties that all of us face by the rise of extremism and the rise of terrorism. The Jewish community here is a strong one. It's well organized. It has excellent leadership. They are not only serving their communities well, but they're also quite active in making sure that public officials, government officials, know how they feel about these issues. I know that President Hollande went to Toulouse with Bibi Netanyahu after the incident. He has spoken out strongly against anti-Semitism. That means when you speak out, you also have to have your law enforcement operations dedicated to fighting it, to doing the kind of work necessary to expose it, then to deal with it. Certainly, French officials have heard that from the community here. They've responded to it. And the community, of course, is deeply concerned, especially after an incident like that at Toulouse. And I'm sure that over the course of the next few days, and we're going to be meeting with the leadership of CREEF, which is the umbrella organization for the Jewish community here. We'll be meeting with them in great detail. B'nai B'rith has a a large organization here, a large network here that we're very proud of. And over the next few days, right through Shabbat, we'll be meeting and talking and learning more about those views and how the community deals with these issues here, what their hopes are, what their expectations are, and that's important. You know, we live in a global village, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
We're probably more connected today than we've ever been before with Jewish communities around the world because of the internet, because of travel. And these kinds of visits, I think, are extremely important. They're important not only for the French community, they're important for us as well. And that's why we're here for the next few days.
Yes. Bowie, forgive me, it does not sound at the moment, then, that you have encountered any real sense of desperation within the Jewish community of France.
Well, you know, desperation is hard to measure. You know, people have their lives here. You know, they go to school, they get married, they have jobs, they have businesses, they have long-standing connections to this country. They have worked very hard here to build their community. There's no doubt that Toulouse and all of these other incidents, and we can rattle through a whole list here, as I said before, have had their impact on the thinking. But again, it's a strong community, it's a large community, and again, led by very, very competent leadership, both lay leadership and professional. And we want to learn more about it and see, you know, if there are any ways that we can be helpful as they move day to day in their lives as a French Jewish community.
Now, I understand, Dan, your next stop will be Israel. Is that correct?
Right.
And you're going to be meeting with the Prime Minister Netanyahu, with President Perez, and with other leaders of the political parties as the Knesset begins to round into shape. What do you hope to do in Israel? What's the purpose of the Conference of Presidents and your presence there as well? What do you hope to achieve when you're in Israel?
Well, I think the first thing is solidarity, to express our solidarity with the State of Israel. It's in a very, very tough neighborhood, tougher perhaps than it has been in many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at what's happening in Egypt, North Africa, Tunisia today, when you look at the Iranian situation, Syrian situation, of course, Hamas and Hezbollah, the neighborhood is more than rough. It's a dangerous neighborhood. And so solidarity with the people of Israel, first and foremost in our minds. Secondly, they're going to build a new government. There'll be a new coalition in Israel, and we're going to hear, I'm sure, a great deal about the various variables that will be going into coalition building. We've learned that President Obama will be visiting Israel this spring. I'm sure there'll be some talk about that. It's a very, very interesting and a very important development. And we'll be doing some other things, learning more about high tech in Israel and seeing and meeting some of the exciting new entrepreneurs and doing those kinds of things that when you're sitting in New York or Washington, even though we have strong connections to Israel, even though we travel on our own, when you go as a group, you go as the Conference of Presidents, when you have 50-plus organizations that are together, this is the organized community of the Jewish community of the United States. We think there's kind of there's value added in doing that. So that's the purpose, and I think that's what we are hoping to get out of it.
I hope everybody heard you well. It sounds like you're on a wonderful trip. Roughly how many people are there with you?
Well, we've got about 70 here, and I think we're going to be joined by another 40 or 50 once we get to Israel.
Wow. Are you having fun?
You know, I'll tell you something. Every day, I've been in this field for about 40 years, and every day brings something new, brings a new challenge. It also brings new rewards. I mean, the idea that we have an opportunity to work in our community, to build our community, to commiserate with one another when we need to promote and encourage each other when we need to defend each other when we need to reach out to friends when we need to, and to know that there are friends out there outside the community. That's an important feeling to have, and many of us, I think, have that view, and I'm pleased to be a part of it.
But Dan, you didn't say you were having fun. Are you having fun?
Well,
is there a fun aspect to
meetings
this
morning
trip?
to night, so you can imagine.
Okay. By the way, is Malcolm Hoenlein with you on this trip?
Malcolm will be joining us in Israel, and we're looking forward to seeing him.
When you see him, you wish him well from everybody here at Shalom TV.
I definitely will.
And when you're back in the States, I really hope there's a chance for us to sit together face to face. You do wonderful work for B'nai B'rith, and not only that, you do wonderful work for the American Jewish community and for World Jewry. And it's so lovely of you to take a moment from Paris to sort of give us an update on the status of the discussions on Hezbollah and whether it will not be part of a put on the terrorist list by the EU. And I just thank you so much for giving us some time.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Be well. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And that was a report by the Vice President of the B'nai B'rith International Executive, Daniel Mariaschin. And again, their hope is that they will convince European nations to add Hezbollah to the terrorist list. From our perspective, I hope I'm speaking for many of you, it would seem to be so obvious to do that. And we wish them well, and I'm glad that you had a chance to hear Dan sort of bring us up to date. As always, I appreciate your joining us for In the News. My thanks this time to Tisha Bader for producing this segment of the program, and I hope you'll stay with us for more of Shalom TV. Until the next time, I'm Mark Golub. Be well, my friends.